Okay, hello everybody. This is Brother Wolf, and this is HS 375. Tonight's group is going to present to us on managing physician group practices. And I'll just go ahead and turn the time over to them to start whenever they're ready.
Okay, so I will go ahead and start. The first slide that we're going to go over is the role of the Medical Group Management Association, so the role of the MGMA. The role of the MGMA is kind of to equip medical practice leaders with the information and the tools that they need in order to thrive in their practice. Their goal is to help them with education and legislative information, different data and career resources, kind of networking so that they can get to know other people in the field that will help them to be able to progress and to be able to improve the care that they're delivering to their patients. They do have a national membership, as well as every state has their own affiliate of the MGMA, and they represent more than 33,000 administrators and executives in 18,000 healthcare organizations. So they're a pretty big group, and they can be really valuable to you in your management of your group practice.
I'm just going to pause you here. Okay, I wasn't seeing the slides advance, but did everyone else see it advance?
No.
No.
It looked like it worked there for a second. Okay, I see the first slide that says Group 4. There you go. Okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
Perfect. So now we can go to the next slide.
Okay, it takes a certain type of person to be a physician, and like any other workplace, there's going to be issues working with your coworkers. And also, this slide is obviously generalizing physicians and grouping them all into one category. So physicians tend to value their top six most important factors are respect, fair reimbursement, time, efficiency, money, and control. They tend to make all decisions from a personal perspective as individualists, and they tend to work better alone rather than in groups, just because they all have their own point of view which they think is right. In general, physicians are high control people in a low control environment. And this is why many physicians are persuaded to work in different types of facilities depending on their type of personality. These values can become an issue when one is not being met, and many times administrators and physicians butt heads and don't really see eye to eye. Okay, next slide.
This slide is my slide. Challenges in management. Some of the challenges I have in the box there on the left-hand side. Some of the things that I've seen guys and other managers stressed out with, the burnout and stress. Whenever we work in the environments that we work in, it's always high-paced. We're required to problem solve. We're required to do all those things that make us mentally tired at the end of each day. So burnout and stress is one of the #1 factors, I believe, that lead to management challenges. Managing finances, budget and billing, the staffing issues, HR issues, retention. There's always high turnover in the medical field, and so we're always faced with having to keep our staff, keep them happy, figure out ways to retain the staff, and then that retention, whenever that doesn't work or our retention rate's not high enough, then we're always having to recruit, and both of those things can be challenging. Implementing new processes. As management, we're always looking for new ways to streamline a process, make it easier, fewer hours, less money, and that can be taxing as well. Evaluating existing systems. This one I feel is worse than implementing new systems, because you have to take a system that is somebody else's that doesn't work and figure out how to make it work efficiently. Some of the things that we can do to better manage ourselves and the medical group, we can find a hobby. That sounds maybe funny, but for me, I know to manage my stress and to keep me from burning out, to help me decompress after work, and a hobby is a good way for me to do it. Be familiar with balance sheets, income statements, and budgeting strategies. Just be familiar with the financial aspect of your business. Everybody's business is going to be a little bit different. Every business is going to have a different structure, a different way they do things, different things that they emphasize are more important, or where we want the money. Healthcare, staffing, supplies, it's just going to vary, so make sure you know what your company's focus is. Team building exercises, recruiting strategies, patience and more patience. This goes with the retention and the staffing issues. Team building exercises are always important. We get burnout, so do our staff. We need to find a way just to keep them engaged, keep them working hard. You're never going to have them happy. I shouldn't say never. Very rarely will all your staff be happy. What we can do is we can try to pinpoint the issues in their working environment and eliminate them, or make them a little bit better to keep our retention and staffing at a high level. Learn to adapt quickly and accept criticism. I think this speaks for itself. Management is always the first ones blamed for anything that happens. We're always the first one that has to accept responsibility if something doesn't work. So that requires us to adapt quickly, figure out the issue, and try to change it. That's what I have on this slide. Next slide.
Okay, I guess I'll cover this one for Kara, who's not here. So there's quite a few regulations and laws that are associated with any type of anything in the medical field. And we've learned about quite a few of these, so I'll just quickly go over the first three. We know about HIPAA. It basically protects patient information, makes it easier for people to keep health insurance, and controls costs. Stark Laws is the one that deals with physician referrals. It prohibits a physician from referring patients with designated health plans to a facility that same physician has a financial relationship with. Anti-kickback prohibits the negotiations, exchanges, or bribery in healthcare. And then these are a few new ones. RACs, they aim to identify and correct improper or payment or reimbursement from Medicare. And this actually, unfortunately, happens a lot where companies take advantage of Medicare reimbursement. The Sunshine Act deals with drugs and medical devices that are used in medical programs and basically just states that they must be reported. The Federal Trade Commission Red Flags Rule requires organizations to implement an identity theft prevention program. So I feel like this kind of goes along with HIPAA, just in that top priority should be with preventing patients' health information and just overall identification. And then the American with Disabilities Act, its purpose was to make healthcare and honestly other general aspects of society more accessible for those with disabilities. The key thing that Kara wanted us to point out actually was this last line that says, medical group practices need to be in compliance with all of these laws and standards at all times. One can't be sacrificed for any situation. Okay, next slide. I have this one as well. So, entrepreneurship and medical management. In the recent years, with all of the healthcare reform and like Obamacare, just recently in 2010, many more people are obtaining access to health insurance and new healthcare plans. And so this created a huge new pool of patients who are now taking advantage of medical services and going to medical facilities because they can now afford them and access them too. In addition to more people, technology is making leaps and bounds and improvements, which is creating an increased access to capital and growth. Some of the technological improvements are non-invasive surgeries, needle-free diabetic monitoring, online healthcare, and there's really so much more. Also, with integration in new business models for treatment, disease management, and more, there are more opportunities to start new types of businesses. Employment of physicians and surgeons is projected to grow 14% in the next 10 years. Job growth is projected to, it's actually growing faster in the healthcare services because of the growing population and the aging population. Next slide.
Oh, sorry, I had it on mute. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
So, becoming a medical group manager. So, in my understanding of this, I think sometimes we can overcomplicate things, and I came up with a simple plan of what that looks like. So, first and foremost, you want to become a student of leadership and personal development, and what that looks like is constantly reading and educating yourself on leadership and leadership tactics, and doing your best to be the best you and becoming a leader. Part of becoming a leader is obtaining leadership experience, and we can do that through volunteer opportunities, through seeking positions of growth where we can progress into a leadership position to gain the experience. A really great resource for students like ourselves is to join the Medical Group Management Association. They have a student membership program that is discounted for those who want to participate in this. Through the Medical Group Management Association, you have opportunities to network. You have resources to healthcare industry news, to learn more about becoming a medical group manager and what physicians deal with, what management deals with, so you can understand what you're dealing with in the industry and prepare and act as an executive even while you're preparing to become one. One key thing that is often overlooked is seeking out mentors, and we're learning that in our class about being a mentor and seeking out mentors. And to seek out mentors that can help you, you want to find someone who has experience in the industry that can teach you from not only their wins but also their losses, and how to streamline the direction in your career path so that you can learn from their mistakes, as well as learn from their opportunities where they've grown and lead you in the right direction. So through networking and through your mentor network, you have opportunities to seek out employment, or, as mentioned before, opportunities to volunteer. And by growing and cultivating your network and providing value to them as well, they're going to be more willing to help you in your growth and your development. So with being a student of leadership and having the right education background, and having a focus in the direction you want to go, and having the experience and having your targeted peer network, and finding those mentors that are aligned with your goals, and with a lot of persistence and hustle, you should have the opportunity to progress into that position through your experience and become a medical group manager yourself.
All right, so moving on to the sustainable growth rate, or the SGR, that was something. What? Are we good? Okay, sorry, I'll keep going. So the SGR was something that was used to control spending by Medicare on physician services. It was a formula that they calculated, and that would determine how much reimbursement physicians and physician offices would receive. It includes 4 factors, which you can see here: the estimated % change in fees for physician services, estimated % change in average number of Medicare fee-for-services, estimated 10-year average annual % change, and then the 4th one, the estimated % change in expenditures due to changes in law or regulations. And in short, the sustainable growth rate made it difficult for physicians to get the payment that they deserved for their work because Medicare wouldn't always reimburse a full amount. The SGR was repealed in 2015 permanently. I say permanently because there were some situations before where it was sort of excused or it was slightly repealed for certain situations, but now it has been permanently repealed, and physicians are working toward getting the payment that they deserve as they are reimbursed for the work that they do. And this is good because when employees and businesses aren't compensated like they should be, tension arises and nobody is really happy in that situation. Next slide, please. So there was a letter from the Medical Group Management Association, or MGMA, like we heard about earlier in the beginning, and it was written to the United States legislative leadership on March 20th in 2010. In the letter, they addressed that the MGMA cannot support the legislation that intends to transform our nation's healthcare system if the legislation doesn't permanently abolish the Medicare SGR formula. Medicare must reimburse the medical practices the cost of proving the care for the patients. The MGMA is needed to move forward on healthcare reform, but they can't support the legislation that intends to be transformed to the nation's healthcare system if the legislation doesn't permanently repeal the Medicare SGR formula, which now we know that they have permanently repealed that, so that is good. Next slide.
So basically that's the end of our presentation. As you can see, there's a lot of opportunities for growth in this sector of the medical field, and in all of the healthcare field, you're going to have a promising career. But like it says here, if you want to know more, the best way to get information about this is to talk to someone who actually works in a physician's office. If that's where you want to go, then you want to hear it from someone who's experiencing it firsthand. And that's all.
Excellent. Very well done. And I would agree with the slides that you had there about the MGMA. It really is a great organization. If you're interested in this, in becoming a manager or some sort of leadership position in managing a medical group practice, MGMA is kind of a must-have. You have to be a member. And I apologize, I can't remember which one of you was telling us about the student membership rate. I know any dollar you spend as a student is hard to spend because you're living on a shoestring budget as it is, but if you're serious about going into this field of medical group management, I would highly recommend you become a student member because there's a lot of resources available. They have an annual conference as well as some other conferences. Their annual conference is actually coming up in, I think it's the end of October, and it's in San Francisco. And I've been to the conference before. It's a great place to, as you were mentioning, to find a mentor, to just learn about that area of healthcare. Did you come across any kind of formalized program material from MGMA for healthcare leaders who want to maybe be certified in group practice management? Did any of that come up in your research?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I came across you have the local chapter and the broad chapter and or the national chapter, and there's actually a whole resource for the student member portion of it.
Yeah, there's a formalized certification. I don't know if you came across that, but there's what they call a body of knowledge, and what that is they actually outline. The MGMA outlines the specific criteria, or I guess categories, that somebody who is going to manage a medical practice should know. Things like accounting, things like HR, things like supply management, things like the legal and ethical issues and compliance, reimbursement and revenue cycle. And you'll learn a little bit more about this next week as we start to cover the course material a little bit more. So that it's called Body of Knowledge, and it's a specific program. they have a sister organization that actually, the MGMA has a sister organization that helps run that certification program. Did you happen to see what that one was?
No.
It's
No,
called. It's
great.
called. That's okay. It's called the AC. The ACPME. American College of Physician Medical Executives. I'm sorry, physician practice executives. So it's a great resource for those who want to kind of gain some sort of credibility or certification in this area. Some other things I just wanted to kind of highlight. You talked about MGMA. What do you think? Is it a professional society, an advocacy society, or is it both? Any guesses?
Both.
Yep, it's both. So it's both a professional and an advocacy group. Good. The other thing I wanted to mention is we're going to talk a little bit this week about a couple different other organizations. So a lot of physician practices, especially if they're physician owned, doctors don't necessarily go through a business course or a healthcare management course like you guys are going through to help learn to manage a practice. And so a lot of times there are consulting firms out there that will come in and do what's called practice management. One that you're going to learn about next week is called MedMan, MEDMAN, and it's a regional consulting firm that does medical practice management consulting. A lot of BYU Idaho, former BYU Idaho students have ended up working there. So that's highlighted a little bit this upcoming week. And then there's a highlight of a medical practice called Rosemark. I wanted to anticipate in past semesters I've gotten questions about it's an OBGYN practice, and sometimes we ask things like, how many medical specialties is that? Well, OBGYN, a lot of people want to say, oh, that's 2 medical specialties. It's OB and it's GYN. But the medical specialties are usually defined by the residencies that must be done, and OBGYN is one residency. And so Rosemark that we're going to cover is a good example of a single specialty medical practice. You'll find some that are single. You'll find many multi-specialty medical practices as well. And the difference is the number of specialties that are represented. I'm just looking at my notes here about other things I want to make sure that we cover. Oh, yes. So, if you look back many years, most physician practices were privately owned, right? It's the doc and a couple partners maybe that are running the business. What's happened over the years is that more and more medical practices are being either purchased or physicians are deciding just to work either under a contract or be employed by a hospital or a multi-hospital system or a vertically integrated healthcare network. So we've seen historically this shift and this trend for physicians to become employed or under contract to work for hospitals or hospital systems. And right now, it's about 70% of all U.S. physicians are in that boat. So a little over 2/3 are that way. If you looked at this, 20, 30 years ago, it was not that way. It'll remain to be seen how much further that trend continues, but knowing that about 2/3 are that way, it's pretty important to recognize that. That doesn't mean that physician practice managers aren't needed because they're being run by these hospitals or owned by these hospitals. You still need folks like yourself who if you have interest in physician practice management to manage that practice. It just might be under the ownership of a hospital system instead of private ownership. So that's a trend that you should be aware of. Just checking my notes here again. I think I've covered the things that I wanted to cover. You guys did a great job. Any last minute questions or comments from you as a group?
I have a quick question.
Yes.
With some of the statistics of what you were saying, are you finding, or is it even possible for non-physicians, non-doctors to be owners of clinics or practices, or is that not a common thing or even possible?
So are you saying ownership of a physician practice outside of the physician, like you're just a private investor or something? Is that what you mean?
Yeah. What is the common, if that is I guess an investment strategy, is it owned typically by an equity fund or a group of investors or a single investor, and then they hire out physicians, or is that not common?
That's not very common. I don't want to say that it's not possible. In my experience, I haven't seen that I can remember. What I do see is you'll get a bunch of physicians coming together, and kind of all investing, excuse me, in themselves or in a practice. Sometimes you'll see, and like I said, a lot of hospitals are doing this, buying up medical practices and those sorts of things. But I can't think of, but they're probably out there. I'm not aware of very many examples of where like a private equity firm owns that. But maybe that's a great question. Actually, it'd be interesting to know if there are any out there like that. I wouldn't put it past folks, because every possible investment strategy is probably out there. It's just not one that I've seen very commonly.
Okay, thank you.
Well, good. Any other comments or questions before I let you go?
Nope.
Okay, hearing none, if you would just please post the slides, if you haven't already, once the week starts, in the student chat discussion area, and then monitor that this week just to see if people have questions, and you can please jump in and answer those questions, since you guys have done some of this research and are probably a little bit more informed than the rest of the class. So great job. Have a great night and great weekend.
Thank you. You too.
You.
Bye-bye.